You ever feel like you're playing a game, but you don't actually know the rules? Well, that's exactly how millions of people feel about money. Today, we're going to crack open the one book that claims to have all the cheat codes, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're going to get right into the simple but incredibly powerful story that has completely flipped financial thinking on its head for people all over the world.
Okay, so let's just kick things off with a huge question, one that the book throws at you right from the start. What if all the advice you've ever gotten your whole life about earning, about spending, about saving, what if it's all just wrong? That's the provocative idea that gets this whole thing started. Imagine this. You're a kid and you've got two dads. Now, not in the modern family sense, but you've got two incredibly powerful father figures in your life, and each one is pulling you in a completely different direction, especially when it comes to money. That's the real-life story of the author Robert Kiyosaki. And the choice he had to make? Well, it would end up defining his entire life.
And this is where the story gets really interesting. On one side, you have his actual dad, a brilliant academic with a PhD we'll call Poor Dad. On the other side is his best friend's dad, a guy who never even finished 8th grade, who we'll call Rich Dad. Now, both of them earned a pretty substantial income, but one struggled with money his whole life, while the other became one of the richest men in Hawaii. So the lesson here is pretty clear. Your financial success has way less to do with your report card and way more to do with your mindset.
So, what was the secret sauce? What made one dad rich and the other one poor? You know, it really wasn't about the amount of money in their pockets. It was all about the ideas in their heads. They had two completely, totally different philosophies about the same subject, money. And that right there made all the difference. I mean, this slide really just says it all. Poor Dad would always say, "The love of money is the root of all evil." It's a classic line, right? We've all heard it. But Rich Dad, he'd flip that completely on its head. He'd say, "No, the lack of money is the root of all evil." That's a complete 180, and it really sets the stage for everything that follows.
We've all been there, right? You see something you really want, and the first thought that pops into your head is, I can't afford it. Well, that's poor dad thinking. It's a statement that just shuts your brain down. Rich Dad taught that this was just mental laziness. Instead, he would force his brain to work by asking a question, how can I afford it? It's such a simple shift, but it turns your brain from a closed door into a creative problem-solving machine. And here's another mind bender for you. Poor Dad's advice was the classic we've all heard. Study hard so you can find a good company to work for. But Rich Dad's advice was, study hard so you can find a good company to buy. You see the difference? One mindset teaches you to be a great employee. The other one teaches you to be the owner. It's a tiny change in words, but it's a massive change for your financial destiny. All right, let's talk about risk. Poor Dad's whole philosophy was, play it safe, don't take risks. Sounds smart, doesn't it? But Rich Dad had a totally different take. He'd say, learn to manage risk. One approach keeps you terrified, sitting on the sidelines, afraid to even make a move. The other one gets you in the game, learning and getting smarter with every single play. Now this right here is a total game changer. Rich Dad taught that being broke is just a temporary situation. You know, you don't have money right now. But being poor, that's a permanent state of mind. It's not about the number in your bank account. It's about the thoughts in your head. It's the difference between having a temporary setback and living a life sentence. All right, you might want to get ready for this one. We're about to dive into the single idea from this book that has probably caused more arguments than any other. It's a concept that goes against pretty much everything our parents and grandparents taught us about building wealth.
And there it is, the bombshell. Your house is not an asset. Just let that sink in for a second. While most of us are raised to believe that buying a home is our biggest and best investment, Rich Dad says it's actually our biggest liability. Why? Because an asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. And with a mortgage, taxes, insurance, and repairs, your house is a constant drain on your cash. This one idea just shatters the foundation of traditional financial advice.
So you have these two completely different paths laid out in front of you. The author had to make a choice. And this decision wasn't just about his financial future. It was about the person he was going to become.
And here's the kicker. He was only 9 years old. Think about that. While most kids are worried about what's for dinner or the next baseball game, he was making a decision that would affect the rest of his life. It was a choice between two fathers, two philosophies, and two very different futures.
And so he chose the road less traveled. He decided to turn away from the safe, predictable advice of his poor dad, and instead, he followed his rich dad down a riskier, more unconventional path.
And just like the poem says, that has made all the difference.
But look, this isn't just one kid's story. In a way, it's a story about all of us, because the choice he had to make shines a huge spotlight on a major problem in our society, what we are, and more importantly, what we aren't taught about money.
And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the book. The main reason people struggle with money is because they can spend more than a decade in school learning history and science and math, but learn absolutely nothing about money. We're taught how to work for money, but we're never taught how to have money work for us.
So what's the answer? Well, it's not about getting a bigger paycheck or winning the lottery. It's about getting a financial education. It's about finally learning the rules to the game so you can actually start to play to win. Because once you understand how money really works, you're no longer its slave, you become its master.
So really, think of this book as a financial toolkit. It's going to blow up the myth that you need a huge income to get rich. It's going to challenge that core belief that your house is an asset. It's going to finally give you a clear definition of an asset versus a liability. And most importantly, it's going to teach you what to teach your own kids about money, to set them up for a future of financial success. It's the class you should have had in school.
So we'll end with this. A question for you. This story of two dads really forces us to look in the mirror. So take a second and think about it. Who taught you about money? Was it your parents, a teacher, a mentor? And when you think about the advice they gave you and the mindset they had, ask yourself this: were you listening to a rich dad or a poor dad?